Klockan är 9.
It's 9 o'clock and we're in session. The party leaders' debate. First of all, I would like to welcome representatives from the diplomatic corps to the Swedish riksdag. You're warmly welcome. Debating rules. The Prime Minister and the leader of the largest opposition party are entitled to a speech of no more than 7 minutes. Other party leaders are entitled to a speech of no more than 5 minutes in relative size of the parties. And for the first round, we have no rejoinders. Then we'll have a second round where the maximum speaking time is 2 minutes and we have free right of reply, and we do the rejoinders in relative size of the parties, and we use the so-called dueling method with no more than 4 minutes per duels. And the speeches will be made from the platform and the rejoinders from the rostrums in front of the platform. And we will start with the Prime Minister of Kristersson, please.
Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, we got a mandate from the Swedish people to put Sweden in order. Let me remind you how things were then. That was a Sweden with constant government crises, a Minister of Finance who couldn't even pass his own budget, a Sweden where deadly shootings had tripled in 10 years, a Sweden that took in 300,000 asylum seekers without a thought to the consequences, a Sweden where inflation was over 10%, home loan interest rates had doubled, diesel cost 28 crowns per litre, the electricity prices were extreme because the left-wing parties had shut down 4 nuclear reactors. This was a Sweden that was poorer and more dangerous. The Swedish people saw it and voted out that government and the politics that had led us there. Step by step, we now are making the decisions that make Sweden richer and safer. We have pressed down inflation from 10% to 2%. That alone lowers the cost of welfare by 50 billion crowns. We have reduced tax on everyone who goes to work. An ordinary family, in the space of 2 years, has gotten a 23,000 crown tax reduction. Filling up with diesel costs around 700 crowns less now. Sweden has gotten 2,400 more police officers, and they have gotten new tools, preventive eavesdropping, security zones, anonymous witnesses, and the police finally is taking away the gang's luxury goods and status symbols. Last year, 19,000 prison years were handed out, more than ever before. It says something that even is necessary, but when more criminals are locked up for longer, more honorable people dare to be outdoors. We have reduced asylum immigration to the lowest level since 1985. Now we have a chance to manage integration, and we are maintaining roads and railways. This year alone, we are putting 18 billion crowns towards rail maintenance. We have had a lot of a hurry, Mr. Speaker, too much of a hurry. The parties that don't usually do anything think, but we're on the right path and we get things done. Now it's time for major investments for the future so that we can turn over a better Sweden to our children and grandchildren. We have an important role to play in the world, but in unsettled times, it is our responsibility to build Sweden stronger. We support Ukraine, but we also are conducting the greatest rearmament of the Swedish Defense Forces since the Cold War. Historic investments on research and infrastructure strengthens Swedish competitivity when the USA is threatening a trade war. A new Swedish nuclear power program, more stable and fossil-free electricity for the green transition. This means more Swedish jobs, increased Swedish growth, and a stronger Sweden. Just the last few weeks, companies like NVIDIA and Brookfield have presented AI investments in Sweden for around 100 billion crowns. They believe in Sweden. I do too. Mr. Speaker, next year we will have elections again. two alternatives are pitted against each other again. On my side of politics, we want to continue to put Sweden in order. On the other side, they want to turn the clock back. And the Social Democrats are now making the biggest left turn since the employee funds in the 70s and 80s. This is a new situation in Swedish politics. They want Sweden to work less with reduced working hours, take away the qualifying day for sick pay so more people are sick listed, retire early, increase benefits for people who don't work. Everyone knows who will pay for that. Higher taxes for people that work. Take Stockholm, where the left-wing parties raised tax on an ordinary family by 6,000 crowns per year and still can't even manage the bus traffic or the eating disorder clinics. But the left turn is not just about finances. After an immigration policy that was not thought through, the Social Democrats want to stop segregation by mixing the population, as they say. Their plan is for people who live in well-functioning areas to be used as integration tools, but problems like criminality, honor culture, and clan violence are not solved by spreading the problems over the country, but by taking care of the problems in a serious manner. The Social Democrats' left turn is just the beginning, because everything they think should then be compromised with the Left Party and the Green Party, and that complicates things. The wish list is long. Raise taxes, which would affect lots of people, increased or reinstating property tax, more immigration, refugee amnesty, and Sweden leaving NATO. In the middle of a war, this is shows an astonishing lack of judgment. Everything would be a part of the left turn. And this term, the Left Party, the Environment Party, or both, have voted no on almost all of our proposals about crime and reduced immigration. Mr. Speaker, in a time where Sweden is caught between Putin's military war against Ukraine and Trump's threat of a trade war against Europe, we have to take care of Swedish security and economy. This is not the time for political experiments. Sweden cannot afford a left turn. Let us instead keep cool heads and a steady course from poorer and and more dangerous to richer and safer for a much better tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. The Magdalena Andersson from the Social Democratic Party has the floor. Go ahead.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, since we were in this chamber last to debate, the world has changed thoroughly. The political continental plates have moved, and today Sweden is in a new, very serious security policy situation. The rules-based international order is being challenged, and the world economy is in upheaval. There is a threat of trade war, and that is a result of a right-wing populist politics. The world that we had yesterday does no longer exist. And then Sweden has to act with strength and with determination. Sweden has to have a government that sees the new reality for what it is and can also act accordingly. Mr. Speaker, it is about strengthening the entire total defense, the army, the air force, the marine, and to support our defense industry. It is also about strengthening the healthcare sector, to equip transport networks, to build civilian preparedness stocks so that we can manage this new serious situation. We are basically all in agreement. It is good for our country that we can discuss between political parties about financing and rearmament of the defense. And we, the Social Democratic Party, we are always prepared to support the government so that we together can take responsibility for Sweden and the security of the Swedish citizens. But I think that many of us were surprised when we read the spring budget that the new world situation has not made any real imprint in that budget. And that was a bit like watching what is inside a time capsule from times gone by. And in such a situation, when we quickly have to re-equip the total defense and prepare for difficult times, then I think that expectations were greater. And I have to be clear, we, the Social Democrats, were prepared to work quicker and also more intensely so that we quickly can strengthen the total defense. We can look to the south and be inspired. The Social Democrat Mette Frederiksen and her government, they were quick to take action. Mr. Speaker, we live in a time with a lot of turmoil, and of course, an export-dependent country like ours, well, of course, it will be difficult if we have a trade war, but the starting point for Sweden is worse than it could have been. The forecast for growth are being revised downwards, and we have a sluggish recession. People who live on subsidies and grants, well, those numbers are going up. We have about 500,000 Swedish people who are unemployed, and food prices are up 25%. Youth unemployment is around 25% as well. And we see that in the everyday lives of people, ordinary people who work and do what they're supposed to. Well, times are more and more difficult for them. And this is no law of nature that the Swedish economy should develop in a weaker manner than other countries. This is a result of the economic policy that has been conducted. And we see the coalition parties and their financial policy that it hasn't been able to protect Sweden and the Swedish population. And we see it's more and more obvious that they do not have a shared economic idea, which means that things are prioritized incorrectly. Ulf Kristersson and Jimmy Åkesson make it more expensive for people to buy medication. We see lesser support given to single parents, and at the same time they give themselves thousands of krona every month in tax deductions. And this is not just bad for the cohesion in our country, it's also a very poor economic policy. Mr. Speaker, we have to improve Swedish welfare, and we need a proper economic policy that do that. I want to see a bolder policy with growth, more companies, more jobs. I want to see a policy where we have investments into Sweden, where ordinary people get a better everyday life, where we see more prosperity for Swedish citizens with money in their wallets so that they can feel safe and secure throughout their entire lives. We need a richer and stronger Sweden. Mr. Speaker, shootings and bombings continue. Places that we felt were safe, residential areas, schools, workplaces, they're now turned into crime scenes. And at the same time, we see that recruitments for criminal gangs, well, they recruit younger and younger teenagers. Since 2022, number of children under the age of 15 that have been involved in murders, that number has gone up with more than 200%. 200%. This is a horrific development, and it's obvious that we cannot continue with business as usual. Yes, we are to continue with harsher sentences, recruiting more police officers, what we've done the last few decades. But it is obvious, it's completely obvious that this is not enough. And that is why we, the Social Democrats, want to see legislation targeting the leaders of the gangs so that we can get to those gangs that order those bombings and shootings. And we have to keep our eyes glued on all the young guys who are headed off in the wrong direction. And it's obvious that the government doesn't have any such a policy. We could start with low-hanging fruits. We could make it impossible for criminal gangs to have residential care homes that they then use to recruit new teenagers. Mr. Speaker, Sweden is an amazing country. And we're reminded of that at this time of the year, not least. We can move into the 2030s as a stronger, safer, more just country. But we are in a situation where we need strong leaders. We need a government that is not fully occupied with infighting or assigning blame to others or managing their own scandals. We need a government that can focus fully on improving the everyday lives for Swedish citizens to make their lives safer, more secure, so that Sweden can become safer, better. Our country needs a new direction. Thank you. And the next speaker is Jimmy Åkesson from the Sweden Democrats, please.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, Sweden needs a new direction. That's exactly what Sweden got when the voters had their say in the last election, and that is also the direction that we in the Sweden Democrats, together with the government, are now heading towards. And we're doing it well. We have faith in the direction we're taking, and we believe that the actions we take now will make our country grow, become more safe, and have more social cohesion. Fuel prices almost halved, more dangerous people locked up, and they're locked up for longer. Asylum-related immigration that has been reduced to the lowest levels since measurements began about 40 years ago. Expulsions of people who commit the most heinous of crimes, tightening social benefits and welfare for those who refuse to contribute and adapt to our society. I can make this a very long list, Mr. Speaker, a list of very good things that will increase security, safety, social cohesion, and make life easier for people who live in Sweden, not least when it comes to fuel prices, because not that long ago, there was a whole host of left-wing green politicians who did everything they could to raise fuel costs. In this chamber, in the autumn of 2023, we voted on a significant decrease of the reduction obligation, and our side won with a very small margin. If the other side had won, we would have instead seen a very steep increase, 45% in reduction obligation for diesel. It would be about 10 crowns more per litre of diesel instead of the almost or a bit more than 10 crowns lower that we have been able to deliver. The Sweden Democrats, as you know, were against the reduction obligation already when it was adopted. It was obvious for us already at the time to stand up for policies that quickly and concretely produced positive impacts for large groups of people in our country, for normal wage earners with normal regular incomes, regular lives, regular workers, small business owners, families with children, old age pensioners, for women, for men, for older, for younger people, everyone who is dependent on using their car to make their life work, not least in our rural areas. They deserve politicians who see them and see their needs, who make their lives easier, not politicians who do their utmost to make their lives even more difficult and confusing. That, Mr. Speaker, is the new direction that Sweden is now heading towards, and that is a direction that I and the government will continue to bring Sweden towards. The last thing Sweden needs, Mr. Speaker, is to go back to the direction we were heading towards before the last election. Politicians, arrogant politicians who systematically made mistakes and created huge damaging rifts in this country in so many areas. The last thing Sweden needs is a return to social democratic policies of lack of security, naive politics, hodgepodge politics that didn't produce a stronger society or a stronger, safer Sweden. The left-wing parties, what they present now is still very unclear. There's no common thought. There's no joint expression of desire or wishes. We don't know anything about that alternative on that side of the aisle. We have only heard lots of promises and proposals that point in very many different directions. The only thing we know for sure is that their track record is atrocious. The left-wing parties have very different views on issues that are very crucial to Sweden. So that is why, Mr. Speaker, we, the Sweden Democrats and the government, will continue to push Sweden forward in the direction following the trust placed in us by the voters in the last election. And that will pay out well for Sweden. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Tack.
Thank you very much. The next address is from Nooshi Dadgostar, the Left Party.
Mr. Speaker, the other day I got an email from Caroline, who works as a personal assistant and has 3 children. I really want to thank you for everything you're doing and have done for us single mothers. She can only afford 1 meal per day. The children can't do any activities. There won't be any ice cream on the beach anymore, no Saturday candy. And the 12-year-old cannot hang out with his friends like he did before. That makes my heart sore. I'm very sad, says Caroline. And they will never get their childhood back. The memories created when we are small. For me, that was swimming, figure skating, football, activities that taught me to be a good friend, a team player. This government takes childhood away from children. Ebba Busch lets children go to bed hungry. The child's parties are cancelled. Almost 30% is what food prices have been raised by since Bush waived her follow sausage. We have presented a long list of proposals to get food prices down, but the government and the Sweden Democrats have stopped proposal after proposal. Instead, the labor market Minister Mats Persson ran away and bought stocks in the food giant Axfood the same day as the Minister for Finance summoned the food giants. He knew that the Minister for Finance would not be making any demands for lowered prices, and Persson immediately made money on his stocks. That's how they work. And in time for the summer break, lots of families, especially single-parent families, will be losing their housing subsidies. The government and the Swedish Democrats will be raising fees for medicine by almost 1,000 crowns. The Minister for Energy and her government authority have raised electricity network fees. The wave of layoffs changed into a storm of layoffs in healthcare. Child groups at Preschools are growing and market-based schools are sucking money out of our activities. This government does not have our best interests at heart. The background is simple. Their focus is on lowering taxes for high earners by almost 50,000 crowns. 50,000, and that's paid for by the single mothers, the pensioners who need medicine, and the children at preschool. Mr. Speaker, Sweden is a strong country. We have a lot of innovative power, great companies established all over the world, and a common welfare. We could invest in Sweden in green energy, in a new railway, in more housing construction, in everyone who lives here in Sweden, in preschool and in research at universities, but none of this is being done. Where are the investments that could compete for green industry with China and the USA so that we can manage the climate transition as a richer country? We are the ones who need to build the future. Sweden, a nation with experience in industry, technological know-how, and exceptionally good conditions for energy production. The expectations of the whole world are on our shoulders, but instead we have 4 lost years for the climate transition. Instead, almost 500,000 people are out of work, next worst in all of Europe, and 2% of those job seekers are given access to labor market and education. Most people can't even get in touch with Arbetsförmedlingen when they try, and this autumn unemployment payments will will lower dramatically. You can hardly believe it's true, but Mats Persson appears to be happy. A labor market ministry without more ambition than to buy stocks, trade in stocks. We live in the world's best country, a country built on community and togetherness, but today we have weak leadership with ministers and state secretaries that mostly are working for their own wallets, a prime minister who can't manage to hire a security advisor, a government that is a Swedish Democratic Party supporting party who has grown together with Hells Angels and therefore stops all proposals to take back welfare from welfare criminals. But Sweden can be better. Sweden can go in a new direction so that Caroline's children can have ice cream on the beach in the summer, and we in the Left Party are prepared to do the work. Thank you.
Tack.
Thank you. Next speech from Rickard Nordin from the Center Party. Go ahead.
Herr talman!
Mr. Speaker, Sweden is an amazing country, but it's also a country where we have a gap between cities and the rural areas that's never felt greater than before. This is not a gap where we're talking about kilometers, but opportunities that you get the same type of care, schools, and feels as safe and secure regardless of where in the country you live. If you live in the rural areas, well, usually you pay more taxes than those who live in cities. You pay more and get less. And this is a geographical injustice that we have to do away with. The Centre Party wants to do away with it. It tears Sweden apart. We cannot accept that it continues like this. And I dare say that we are the only party that takes this seriously. The government has wasted valuable time. They make inquiries about health care. No one is interested. Instead, they should solve problems by having proper subsidies. And what we see today is a betrayal against individuals, those who carry our country on their shoulders every day. They make sure that we get richer because of our natural resources, but they get nothing back. The Social Democrats, well, they like to complain about the government, but they also want to do the same thing with more centralized power, less decision-making power for individuals, and this is not a solution. This is the problem. And we, the Centre Party, we know that centralized government, that doesn't work. Can anyone believe that that will be easier to develop rural areas if things and schools, for example, are controlled from Stockholm? Well, the probability that the school can remain, that is low. And what we see from central government is that an optimal school has 500 pupils. Primary care centres, well, they are abandoned because the doctor-patient ratio is not high enough. And those who live in these rural areas, they do not care about requirements from the government, from Stockholm. And the Centre Party, we believe in something else, where people should not be penalised because they decided to live in rural areas, that they've moved from central bureaucracy to local events. We should allow companies and service and infrastructure to grow in the entire country, not just in the cities. It's not just about pitting cities against rural areas. It's about justice where all parts of Sweden can have that belief in the future. You should have cities filled with country folks like me, because we know what it's like in the countryside, and we feel that everyone should have the same opportunities. And it is about Sweden's future, because it is in the rural areas where we produce food and where making sure that children can get their food in school canteens, that we have wood to build houses, where we produce electricity so that we can have electricity in our homes across the country. To have those same preconditions in the rural areas as in cities, that is decisive for the entire country, and we have an enormous potential. The Swedish farmers, well, they are the future oil sheiks. Everything that you can do with oil, we can do with Swedish wood and Swedish forests and the countryside. That is where we have those raw materials for biofuels that can fuel cars, boats, airplanes, so that we can produce sustainable plastics, colors, textiles. We have enormous opportunities, and if we make use of those opportunities, then everyone will win, and it's not even difficult. So when other people talk, we do what we say we are to do. We have proposals for the rural areas so that they get money back for the natural resources that they deliver. And we want all decisions to be tested so that we know that they're important for the entire country, not just for the central parts of Stockholm. We have to have more money spent on building, developing the entire country. And we need people moving in, not leaving. And now it's time for the rural areas, and the Centre Party, we think long term, and we have to make sure that those who build the country also get money for what they're doing. The Centre Party, we will continue our work until all of Sweden gets an honest chance. Thank you. Thank you, and we continue with the next address. Ebba Busch, Christian Democrats, please.
Mr. Speaker, in the last couple of years, quite a lot of our debates have been characterized by expressions like, we were naive, we didn't see it coming, didn't see the migration crisis coming, were naive before the challenges of integration, didn't see the system-threatening rampage of gang criminality, a naive disinterest in the laws of physics, demanding stable baseloads to make sure our power systems work. If politics is too much characterized by the next election, short-sightedness and being reactive, then the result is quite poor. Imagine instead if we would have chosen a different path for our country sooner. What if we can choose a different path now for Sweden? Mr. Speaker, last week, Sweden's parties were given a new chance to think it through before time, an opportunity to act now and not needing to rush into action a few years from now when they suddenly find themselves in dire straits. I'm talking about our healthcare system. That machinery is based on decisions made 160 years ago, but what was good at that time is a clear problem today. Last year, the Cancer Research Fund sounded the alarm, saying that the palliative care in Sweden is very different from region to region. The care you need to receive when you know that there is no longer any hope of recovery. For example, a patient who is in need of specialized palliative care at home can receive that 24 hours a day in one region, but not in another one. Not even at the end stages of life, Sweden can manage to provide the same level of dignity of care to all its citizens. People say that in the face of death, we are all equal. But in the face of the 21 different regions in Sweden, we are not even all the same and equal before death. Ulrika Årehed Kågström, the Secretary General of the Cancer Research Fund, said, "To allow such an important provision of care to work entirely randomly is a betrayal of people in highly vulnerable situations and not worthy of a welfare state like Sweden." End quote. Random. A betrayal. Not worthy. Last week, the Swedish daily Svenska Dagbladet said how cancer patients fail to receive timely care because the different medical record systems of different regions cannot communicate. This is not about shifting the seat of power to Stockholm. It's about shifting power away from regional politicians to the care system and provide a better level of dignity to our patients. The Christian Democrats have for a long time wanted the state to take a bigger responsibility for healthcare, and we're proud that we, through the All-Party Commission, have dragged other parties to this point, all the way to realizing that 21 regions can no longer manage to deliver what Swedish patients, care workers and citizens can expect. But that's as far as the thinking went on the Commission. Instead, the majority of all the parties want to continue to fill the seats on the regional boards with every bigwig that supported them in this struggle, hoping to not have to go another round with us, and we still maintain use of our senses, because the basis of the inquiry is clear. We need equal care throughout Sweden. Sweden has to go all the way to reduce the lack of clarity in a fragmented care system. We need to identify what the needs are on time, because heaven knows that the Swedish government and riksdag have tried to get the regions into shape, invested state billions in shortening queues, put in place performance-based state subsidies, spoken to regional politicians who promise benchmark and use best practice, and still all regional politicians seem convinced that, well, the best practice is what we do. Still, we aren't seeing shorter queues. Still, we don't have a unified medical record system. Still, somebody at the end stage of life cannot be certain that they will receive the best possible level of care. The degree of dignity when faced with death seems to depend on your postcode. Mr. Speaker, Sweden deserves better than this. And it is up to the political parties to explain in next year's election why this system is better. Please choose a different path. We can go ahead and do so already today. Thank you.
Tack.
Thank you. The next speaker, Daniel Helldén from the Green Party. Please take the floor.
Herr talman!
Mr. Speaker, Sweden deserves a leadership that sees reality for what it is and takes responsibility to solve the major problems we're facing. But after 3 years with this government, we see a pattern. They're failing ordinary people and they're failing the future when families with children are fighting to get the money to make ends meet. The government takes away housing subsidies for families with children. When people are sick, the government cuts down high-cost protection and when the climate changes are more and more acute, the government dismantles climate policy bit by bit. And when children are starving in Gaza, the government chooses to take away humanitarian support that for many people is the difference between life and death, food, water, and a roof over their head. They turn their gaze away when people need us most. Mr. Speaker, when the evidence heaps up, the government cannot wait until it's too late to stand up for human rights. Let's say it like it is. What Netanyahu is subjecting Gaza's population to is a genocide. The government chooses instead to say almost nothing, and that is undignified. This is a government that consistently fails those who have the least and need the most. In that policy, it reflects a view of humans, of human beings, where you make a difference between one people and another, where certain lives are worth more than another. The Green Party wants something else. We believe responsibility starts with how we see each other in crises and in everyday life, in Sweden and the world. That's why we are struggling for welfare worth trusting and a fair climate transition, a politics that holds together society, does not divide it. Mr. Speaker, over 40% of Europe is in some type of drought. The situation is especially acute in Southern Europe, where farming and water access is pressured to the limit. In Sweden, groundwater levels are worryingly low, and in parts of the country, and a rising sea level threatens cities and coastal communities. The result of the TIDA coalition government's 3 years in power is the largest increase in emissions in 15 years. The electrification of the transport sector has slowed down. The increase in renewable electricity has reduced incredibly. Sweden is assessed now to miss all climate goals both in 2030, 2040, and 2045. That's a catastrophe. Mr. Speaker, Sweden is in a serious security situation. In these times, we have to strengthen our preparedness and ability to resist, not weaken it. Climate changes increase the risk of conflicts and increase our insecurity both globally and at home. At the same time, we know that secure and equal welfare is the basis of a society that holds together as in crisis as well. When the government cuts down the security system, so Sweden's ability to resist is weakened as well. Therefore, we need to do both. We have to take the climate crisis seriously and invest in welfare. That's what we mean by a fair transition. That's how we strengthen Sweden for real. Mr. Speaker, this development with increased emissions, growing gaps, and decreased security is not fated. It's the result of political decisions, and we can make different ones. Sweden has everything to gain from a quick and just climate transition. We can end our vulnerable dependence on fossil fuels. We can strengthen our ability to compete with Swedish companies on the cutting edge of technology. But Ulf Kristersson and the government have chosen to duck that responsibility and throw away that chance. The Green Party wants politics to take its responsibility. Mr. Speaker, the government has shown what it wants to do with Sweden and what they are prepared to sacrifice. We in the Green Party stand for something else. We stand for a Sweden that sticks together, where security and safety go together, where we take our responsibility together. It is not too late to choose a different path, but time is pressing. Thank you. Johan Persson from the Liberals has the floor. Go ahead.
Tack, herr talman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sweden and the world is very, very different today compared to 1998, when I, for the first time, was elected into the Swedish riksdag. After at least 7 years of budget austerity, we then started to see improvements in the Swedish economy. The EU membership, well, with that membership came hope about prosperity, and liberal ideas about freedom under responsibility had tailwinds. During this time when I've been in politics, we've seen many different crises, global financial crises, regional crises, the collapse of the Middle East, and a global pandemic, just to mention a few. Unfortunately, today, the geopolitical situation that we're in today might be the most difficult since I first entered into this chamber. The rules-based world order is now basically just thrown overboard by certain nations. We see war, we see authoritarian parties growing. We see the customs levies of the 1800s coming back. And here we also see difficulties within the EU to manage the climate objectives. We see criminals, separatists, extremists benefit from our kindness, and we see states hurting us. And, Mr. Speaker, to be a party leader that has been, well, working for Sweden and developing answers, liberal answers to societal problems, and many things remain to be done. And now the government is delivering on what we have promised, the nuclear power, for example, Swedish knowledge requirements. Another example, and I know that we will be successful on many different points. And Ulf, I look forward to seeing you once we have decided that the euro is better than the Swedish krona, that we can then meet in the queue for the exchange office. Sweden will become richer and safer with a common currency. And Magdalena Andersson, perhaps we'll run into each other as retirees, well, in many, many years, of course, when getting our grandchildren from a school, the school where the state has a responsibility. And when the Social Democrats have realized that leaving everything for the municipalities, that was a mistake. The government will continue to deliver on difficult societal problems with proper answers, to continue with schools. This is where we have our most important campfire. This is where we equip new generations for being adults with words, with algebra, where we can inoculate the children against racism with democratic values. And that is why we, the Ribboleths, the government, now deliver when it comes to the school. We are not going to have independent schools that do not do things properly. And we should have peace and quiet in classrooms, discipline and respect for teachers and for one another. Well, that is something that will make schools safer for all children so that they can learn better. Parties have promised that there are to be one party for schools. There is only one such a party, and that is the Liberal Party, and that has been the case for a long time. And then Daniel Heldén. And I guess this will make you happy. I want to see more people from the Green Party in Sweden. Well, Ebba, I want to see more Christian Democrats as well. I want to see more democratic representatives in all government and political parties, because we have a shared responsibility, which is to safeguard democracy. And it's not enough to just talk about safeguarding the liberal democracy. Someone also has to do that job. And we need more people who need to do that. We have to have people who take their responsibilities. We do that full time. And we have others who have part-time assignments, and we need all of these individuals. And thank you to all of those individuals. Now, This is my last party leader debate, but I will continue in the Liberal Party. I will continue to do what I need to do in streets, in squares. Perhaps I will knock on your doors with a pamphlet in my hand. I will continue to encourage everyone to be involved for a democratic Sweden, because this is a responsibility that we share, all of us. Thank you.
Tack.
Thank you. And that concludes the first part of the debate, and we're going to continue with the second part, where I'm going to hand back to the Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, please.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, we are living in serious times, and in order to prepare Sweden well for the future, we have to make major investments in society. Like, for example, the largest rearmament of our defense in modern time, investments in police and correctional care, managing integration, securing welfare, more new nuclear power for more fossil-free electricity, better roads and railways, more research and innovation. Sweden needs all of this, and none of it is free. In order to afford it, Sweden needs to be richer. We must go from living on benefits to benefiting society. But the Social Democrats want people to work less. On the contrary, more people should be sick-listed and take their pensions early. Their left turn would make Sweden poorer and more dangerous. This brings up important questions. With fewer people working, more people living on benefits, and more immigration, how would the left alternative finance defense, police, new roads, railways, welfare, and the climate transition? Should every family pay higher taxes like in Social Democrat-run Stockholm? Will there be a new property tax, home loan tax, increased tax on savings? Sweden and the world are in a serious situation. This is not the time for political experiments that risk what made Sweden strong and rich. Now is the time to build a society where everyone contributes, where everyone expected to contribute, where we together can make Sweden really strong again. Thank you.
Tack.
Thank you. Magdalena Andersson for the Social Democrats, Nooshi Dadgostar for the left, and Daniel Halden for the Environmental Party have asked for replies. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, Ulf Kristersson talks about fewer people living on welfare with the government's policy. The problem is the results are quite different. Ulf Kristersson likes to talk about the primacy of work principle, but during my years as finance minister and prime minister, we saw fewer people living off the benefit systems. But over the past couple of years, Mr. Kristersson has turned that trend around, and more people are on benefits, and we can see rising unemployment. So apparently we have two issues with the primacy of work principle of Ulf Kristersson. First is no jobs. The other is that that principle is taking us in the wrong direction. Mr. Kristersson, you say that fewer people should live off welfare, but we have more people instead. What could be the reason? Cuts in labour market policies, cutbacks on adult education, or the fact that the government has driven through a construction crisis and more bankruptcies? What are the thoughts of the Prime Minister on this? Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first question out of curiosity. When the previous Minister for Finance mentions her time, Whose budget are you talking about? Your own budget or the budget that fell? That's a little unclear. We don't know what the alternatives you're talking about. You don't know what budget binds Sweden's parliament, the riksdag, so it's a little difficult to say here. The old benefits line was not working. There was a time when we thought we could have twice as many sick-listed people as the rest of the world. You're looking towards the old line again. Do you really want that? Or is this a compromise with the left party and the environmental parties' demands? This is an important question. If Sweden is going to do any of the things you say you are behind, reinforcing defense and so on, then Sweden has to work and fewer people have to be living on benefits.
Tack.
Thank you, Magdalena Andersson.
Mr. Speaker, I truly agree with Mr. Kristersson that fewer people have to live on benefits and more people have to work. But with the policies of Mr. Kristersson, the results are that unemployment is on the rise and more people are living on benefits. So it is the policies of Mr. Kristersson that leads us to this benefit line. He talks about the primacy of work principle, growth policies being worse, their growth policies being worse than in other countries. And if, Mr. Kristersson, you say that this is because of the recession and the economic climate, but Mr. Kristersson, before we had bad and good times in our economy, but people were still not living off benefits to the same degree. So you still haven't answered my question. Why do we see more people living off welfare and benefits with your politics? It's not enough to just talk about the primacy of work principle and talking about that line to get people into actual jobs. Thank you. From the Prime Minister.
Final rebuttal from the Prime Minister. Thank you. We have to go back to the fundamentals of the work line if we want to understand what's happening. There was a time when you had twice as many refugees in Sweden that you, people on benefits, that you actively permitted because you were lax in the benefit system. You as well, let's be careful about this, agreed on this for a while. And then now you're talking about tougher criminal policy, but as far as NATO membership, you agreed, not your partners, the framework, not your partners. You're pretending like you can run the politics that we can put on the table, that you have the right to vote for if you want to contribute to Sweden's policy now. You haven't put any of those proposals on the table yourself. The unemployment is going up. There's a recession. That's because of immigration. People who've been in Sweden for 16 years cannot speak Swedish and can't get a job. That is serious. Thank you. That exchange of rejoinders was finished. The Nooshi Dadgostar has the next rejoinder. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, this week we saw the outcome of the adoption inquiry. The human trade that has been going on with international adoptions constitute a trauma for many of the concerned parties. While Mr. Kristersson was the chairman of Adoption Center, we saw a doubling in adoptions from China, for example, even though children came from several orphanages who had actually been reported for trading with children. And when this was exposed, many recipient countries took very swift action, like the US and Holland. And the last inquiry wanted to firm up the rules, but Mr. Kristersson was very vociferously against that. So we would like to see Mr. Kristersson apologize. Can I ask Mr. Kristersson why he let the adoptions from China, for example, double, even though there was so much evidence of irregularities, and what responsibility does he take now as Prime Minister? Thank you. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a misinterpretation of what had happened, and it's intentional, I believe, from the Left Party's Nooshi Dadgostar. I contributed to bringing this investigation forward when the information had not gotten out to other countries concerning international adoptions. Today, we know much, much more than we knew 20 years ago. We received this information with a certain humility, and not the least several of the proposals. If we are to apologize from the Swedish government, we need to know exactly what's going on. These are all serious questions. It's not something you just spit out randomly. Information has come out after the fact around the world that we did not have at the time. Now we have that information. Do not misuse people's lives that way. Thank you, Nooshi Dadgostar.
Mr. Speaker, in 2003, Prime Minister Kristersson was contacted because of the scandal that the adoption center had been involved in, where children had been stolen from the Chilean dictatorship and what's later come to light across the world. But that was kept quiet by Mr. Kristersson instead of him getting to the bottom of the matter. This is a similar situation like I explained before. 2004, there were reports that at least 76 infants had been purchased from hospitals in China, but Mr. Kristersson failed to take action on the basis of that information. He was the chairman at the time. Is it the assessment of Mr. Kristersson that these actions in any way, based on the information he had at hand and in the capacity he's now operating, could have contributed to human trafficking? Final comment from Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, these are lies. These are intentional lies for political purposes. Sometimes information has come out from other countries about suspected irregularities. Such signals came from Chile at an early stage before there were police investigations and legal questions. During my time as the chairman of the Adoption Center 20 years ago, we looked at whether there was anything in our files that would have given us any indication anything was wrong. The government authorities got the same information. The Adoption Center does not have a mandate to talk to any country without the government's approval. That's the way things go. There are countries that are not easy to cooperate with, and you also always have to make a determination. Can you trust a country or could you not trust a country? These days, different assessments are made about what countries you can work with than were made then, but we worked within the framework of the law and within the framework of government authorities' decisions. Thank you. That exchange of rejoinders is ended. Floor is to Rika Nagdeen for the Centre Party. Go ahead.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, the security situation in Europe is the most serious we've seen since World War II. The Ukraine are fighting for the freedom of all of Europe, and we're now discussing when Russia is prepared to invade a NATO country. Not if, but when. In spite of this, Europe is sending more money into Russia than into Ukraine currently, because we continue to import fossil fuels from the Putin regime. Every liter of oil and gas that is imported from Russia continue to fund the war. At that point, Ulf Kristersson's government make it a priority to increase the use of fossil fuels in Sweden by 4 million liters of diesel per day. It's not just Norwegian North Sea oil fueling Swedish cars. How, Mr. Kristersson, can you defend us upping our funding of the Russian war economy when Ukrainian soldiers are risking their lives for the freedom of all of Europe? Thank you, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is actually a question in two parts, where on one question we agree with each other entirely and the other not at all. weren't you, if you hadn't shut down Swedish nuclear power, we would not need as much oil. That's the way it is. Oil is plannable. You have a personal political responsibility for shutting down nuclear power in this country. That was bad politics then. It's even worse today when we see what oil actually does. On the other point, we do agree. If Europe and the USA could agree on further massive economic sanctions against Russia and the countries that still buy Russian shadow fleet oils, including the putting pressure on China, which to some extent is facilitating the Russian war against Ukraine, then we could crush the Russian economy, and we agree on that point, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Rickard Nordin.
Oil is not used to electrify Sweden. We haven't been doing that for a long time. More nuclear power doesn't resolve the Swedish oil import. It's good to invest in electrifying our vehicular fleet, but not to increase Putin's war chest, especially when the government does the opposite. We have higher taxes on clean power than we do on fossil diesels. We remove the environmental car bonus. This is contravening climate policy and energy policy. Fossil fuels from Russia is taxed the same as biofuels from Swedish forests. If we had lowered taxes on Swedish fuels, we could make it cheaper to fill up your tank of gas without affecting families. This government has made it their priority to strengthen the war chest of Mr. Putin. So how? The question remains, Mr. Prime Minister, how are you ensuring that we can stop this flow of money coming into Russia? Final rejoinder now from the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a completely incorrect description of what happened in Sweden. We started to make ourselves independent of oil, first with water power, hydropower, and then this was far before we talked about security politics and other people were doing this. Then we shut down nuclear power. How did the center think we would electrify transportation and other sectors if we don't have electricity for the industries that want to establish themselves in Sweden? This is all politics. We could be entirely fossil-free in Sweden, but you worked against this all systematically. Other people's you thought could solve the problem for you, but this is incomprehensible climate policy. It's also incomprehensible when you have stood behind policies against entrepreneurship and companies in Sweden, together with environmental Green Party activists. You are in the wrong place in Swedish politics. Thank you. That exchange of rejoinders is ended. Daniel Hedin for the Liberal Party has the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We can now see day by day how the population of Gaza is starving and fleeing. The need for aid could not be more acute. The UN and other humanitarian organizations have been crystal clear to get aid to the starving people of Gaza. There is no other option but UNRWA. They have 12,000 people on the ground in Gaza. The other aid organizations have together 600 people on the ground. No one can replace the infrastructure of UNRWA. The expert authority of the government comes to the same conclusion, but still, the government continues to block support and funding for UNRWA. My question is, what is the basis of this assessment, Mr. Prime Minister, and why is Sweden taking the front in legitimizing the prohibition against UNRWA? Why is the government playing along with Benjamin Netanyahu's games? Thank you. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, the Moderate Party.
Mr. Speaker, for the first thing, the war in Gaza is completely horrible. Israel is being criticized on very good grounds by Sweden and many other European countries. We have now doubled the support to the civilian population in Gaza. Only 4 countries in the entire world give more money than Sweden to the civilian population in Gaza, and we give it to organizations that we know can get aid to them as well. Other organizations primarily, but you know all of this, basically. You're looking for something entirely different. You're intentionally whipping up the atmosphere in Sweden and pretending like Sweden is not doing anything for people who have very little in Gaza. Why are you doing that when Sweden is at the forefront, leading the rest of the world in supporting the civilian population and criticizing the Israeli government for what they do? Thank you, Daniel Haldem.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, to say that the government is at the forefront, I would say that they are at the forefront of removing funding for UNRWA, and there you should take a different action, and that's the crucial point. The right-wing government of Mr. Netanyahu are indiscriminately bombing civilians. They're actively starving the Gazan people. People are found in rubble, civilian houses when they're coming to collect food. We've heard Israeli ministers talk about Palestinians like human animals and talk about Gaza, the total destruction of Gaza. The UN and other humanitarian organizations have collected significant evidence for crimes against humanity and other international crimes. However, the government has not condemned a single of the war crimes committed by Israel in Gaza. They hide behind the fact that this is a matter for the courts to decide. What responsibility does the Swedish Prime Minister have, in the opinion of Mr. Kristersson, to make an assessment and take action when evidence is piling up to prove that gross crimes against humanity are being committed? Mr. Kristersson.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, Sweden has been very critical of what Israel is doing, together with many other EU countries as well. And that criticism will increase if Israel does not change its policy. That's correct. That's the way it should be. You would have a little greater credit in these policies if you also criticized Hamas, those who take hostages, criticized those who want to bring the conflicts from the Middle East onto Swedish streets and squares. You're quiet there. You're quiet about anti-Semitism, the romanticizing of terrorism, about the faces of Hamas leaders on signs at different demonstrations. You're saying nothing there. You are fawning on people that want to harm other people. We are dealing seriously with terrorists like Hamas.
Därmed.
The exchange of rejoinders after the Prime Minister's speech are finished. The floor is to the Social Democrats. Magdalena Andersson, go ahead.
Herr talman!
Mr. Speaker, I've noted strong interest in social democratic politics in the past couple of weeks, and I want to take this opportunity to explain what it is that I want to achieve for Sweden. I want Sweden to have an economic policy geared towards higher growth, where industry and commerce have better conditions to make sure that more investments end up in our country, more people have jobs to go to. I want Sweden to promote that we are at the forefront of technological development, not least with the green technologies now sweeping the world. I want us to make sure we have high quality in schools and health and social cares by having an adjustment upwards of resources compared to price increases. I want us to settle the score with the market failures that lead to poor school results and disruptive behavior and chaos in classrooms. I want it to be impossible for criminals to operate residential care facilities. I want us to keep our eyes on every young guy on his way to go astray. I want Sweden to have strict migration policies and a demands-based integration policy. I want Sweden to be a strong voice heard around the world in favor of international law, and that the government lets go of its prestige and resumes funding of UNRWA so that we can help those suffering in Gaza. I want us to continue to support the freedom fight in Ukraine. I want all of those who worked a whole life, who started working straight out of school, I want for them to see higher pensions. I want us to do away with the unfair sickness qualifying day impacting people unfairly. I know people attach labels, one kind of another to this. That's not so important. I know that the Swedish people know that this is about common sense, to have more respect for people who work, to start growth, to get more people working so that Sweden can be a bit more like Sweden. Thank you. Rejoinders have been requested from Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, the Moderate Party, Rickard Nordin, the Centre Party, and Ebba Busch, the Christian Democrats. First, the Prime Minister for his rejoinder. Please take the floor.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, the elderly in Sweden, well, the last decade we've seen that there are lots of fraud, phone calls, for example, and very often from criminals from Spain, as a matter of fact. And we need to do what we can to get those criminal gangs. But the Social Democrats, you actually help the problem with lottery tickets being sold to people in Sweden from Spain. 141 million krona in 1 year. And then you have been forced to pay as a fine 3 million krona. And you have refused this far to pay back. And you have also refused to apologize to those elderly who were defrauded. Why?
Magdalena Andersson, Socialdemokraterna.
Magdalena Andersson, the Social Democratic Party. Mr. Speaker, it's a terribly serious development we can see with gang criminals who in different ways defraud our elderly. That's why we, the Social Democrats, want to see a Swedish Mafia Act that can target in a different way than we can now the people who are leading this type of gangs. I really want the government to launch an inquiry like this because we need to have completely different tools at our hands to get at the gang kingpins. When it comes to the Social Democratic Lottery, when we saw that there were irregularities, we immediately stopped our cooperation with that company not doing their job properly. We fired the CEO and the entire board. We were clear from the very beginning. If somebody feels that they've been deceived, well, you can contact the lottery company and that will be resolved. Thank you. The Prime Minister.
Well, that's not exactly what we've heard when we're talking about gang criminals in the residential care home sector. You wouldn't say there, I will call someone if you feel that you're impacted. And here we have a Swedish government agency acting systematically in such a way. The Mafia Act, would that also apply to the Social Democrats, I wonder? And these are serious matters, very much so. And then you should be a role model. We have investigated, we have a legislative bill, a proposal, so that government agencies shouldn't be able to make use of these types of lotteries. What you have been using, the Social Democrats, and you've been using it and you have not mentioned any possibility of excluding it. And here you're talking that we have to do something about gang criminals, but you help them as a matter of fact.
Magdalena Andersson, Socialdemokraterna.
Magdalena Andersson, the Social Democratic Party. Mr. Speaker, this is the Prime Minister of Sweden, who said he was supposed to be the adult in the room. Let's be serious, Mr. Kristersson. We have huge problems in Sweden. We have a growth in the bottom league of Europe, rising unemployment, gang criminals recruiting children in residential care homes. We have more and more young people getting entangled in gang criminality, longest healthcare queues in a long time, the most serious security political situation in decades. We have trade politics making the whole world order real. Mr. Prime Minister, we take responsibility for our lottery. What about the Prime Minister taking responsibility for Sweden? Thank you. That concludes that exchange of rejoinders. The next rejoinder from Rickard Nordin, the Centre Party.
Står här i kammaren och säger att hon vill...
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Magdalena Andersson says here in the chamber that she wants to make things easier for Swedish companies, but what they are doing is something completely different, because we see that there are lots of problems in society, and entrepreneurs, those companies, and well, those who create jobs for others, they do not get the help that they need. We need proposals so that we can get growth where it's needed for welfare, for climate, for safety, security, and we need to do more. We need growth so that everyone can get a bigger share. And if companies cannot afford to employ, if they're just increased taxes so they cannot grow, how can you, the Social Democrats, make it easier for companies to employ people so that companies can grow? Magdalena Andersson.
Tack så mycket för frågan.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the question, Mr. Nordin. How can we make more companies grow and flourish? How can we get more entrepreneurs to have the courage to create new businesses out of their ideas that then can hire people? Well, this is about having a completely different growth policy than the government has. Now we're at the bottom league of Europe. It's obvious that Sweden needs a growth policy and a short-term economic policy at this point that can boost Sweden and our growth to get the wheels turning again, so that these businesses see a creation of demand for their products and services. And that's the problem with the coalition parties. They don't have a shared economic idea. So that's why they time and time again take incorrect decisions when it comes to short-term economic policy and the structural changes we need to see in Sweden. We need a new directions. And I think that we in the Centre Party can have many common ideas on this. Thank you very much. Rickard Nordin.
Well, thank you, Magdalena Andersson. I do think that both of us understand the problem. The government is not doing what it should. We need more innovation. We need the government to solve acute, immediate needs, but also long-term needs. We want to help companies. We want a Sweden where you can grow, where you can work. And Magdalena Andersson, it sounds good what you're saying, nice words, but there's nothing concrete. What the Social Democratic Party is talking about is increased taxes and to help the Swedish coffers that way. But what about doing away with bureaucracy, making sure that we get more skills and competencies and reducing real costs? Here we need proper suggestions. And Magdalena Andersson, final rejoinder.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's good to read the guidelines as well, because that's where you find the concrete proposals, and that's one part where the Centre Party and the Social Democrats and the entire opposition actually have this shared idea for Sweden to continue to do what we've always done, to grow our prosperity by being at the forefront of technological development. And the world is undergoing a green transition because we need to lower emissions. That's the only path forward industry and commerce understood this long ago. It's the coalition parties that want to turn back time. But we have this shared idea that, of course, we will continue to invest in the green transition to make sure that investments and therefore jobs and prosperity come to Sweden. It's about creating good conditions for the new green industries to invest in housing, roads and railroads, and in labour market training programs and adult education so people can take the jobs that are available. I look forward to putting that type of growth policy on the table, and I'd be happy to do so together with the Centre Party. Thank you. That closes that exchange over rejoinders. The next rejoinder comes from Ms. Ebba Busch from the Christian Democrats.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to continue debating the irregularities that we've seen within the social democratic parties and the risk of errors. Last week there was a French report on Islamists trying to infiltrate politics, and Sweden was mentioned as an example. The Social Democrats, they were highlighted as being of particular interest for the Islamic Brotherhood, and the Social Democratic Party unfortunately has a history of ending up on the wrong side. We know that we've seen that before with Magdalena Andersson defending that, and we've also have previous foreign ministers not recognizing anti-Semitism. And now, Magdalenason, will you take action to make sure that there is no Islamist say in Swedish politics, and will you do anything about what we see in the French government report? Magdalena Andersson.
Mr. Speaker, we do not agree about the conclusions from the French reports. We have a zero tolerance against any religious extremism in our party and terrorism as well, and we're actively working to combat that if it shows itself in our party. We actively distance ourselves from it, and of course from anti-Semitism as well. And the anti-Semitism we've seen flare up in Sweden after October 7th is deeply concerning. And that is also why it is so unfortunate that Christian Democrats and the other coalition parties have chosen to provide nice platforms in the Swedish riksdag to a person who believes that Jews cannot be Swedes. This happened in the autumn of 2022. It was inappropriate then. It's even less appropriate now when we see the growing anti-Semitism. Can Ms. Busch say that that was not a good decision at this point? Ebba Busch, the Christian Democrats.
Tack, herr talman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I note that Magdalena Andersson is now lowering herself to that sandbox rhetorics, and that is not what we should be doing here in this chamber. To talk in this manner when we have a close ally, a colleague in NATO, where we're talking about a country, another country's government that have serious allegations, and then to just point a finger and say, what about you? But Sweden is one of the countries in the world where we see most individuals with citizenship or residence permits going there to participate in warfare, and then just say that this is not important, what we see about Islamist action. And what do? We cannot just point fingers. Magdalena Andersson.
Mr. Speaker, Ebba Busch doesn't seem to understand how important it is to hold the line against this sort of thing, because it seems that she still thinks it's correct for a person who thinks that Jewish people cannot be Swedish should be in the Swedish riksdag and be given nice titles and positions. I think that is noteworthy. Anti-Semitism, no matter where it shows itself, should always be combated. They should be shown the door, not be platformed in the Swedish riksdag. When it comes to the French report, it has been called into question in Sweden. Our assessment is that it is not accurate. We have a zero tolerance against extremism and terrorism in our party because it directly contravenes everything we stand for. The liberty of people, the right to decide how you want to live your lives. All those things that religious extremism wishes to restrict. That closes this round of rejoinders on Magdalena Andersson's address. The next person on the speakers list is Jimmy Åkesson from the Sweden Democrats. Please take the floor.
Ja, tack, herr talman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now it's my turn. I could think that I would understand what button to press. I've done this numerous times, so I feel kind of ashamed, but no. Anyway, Magdalena Andersson, she talked about what she wants to do, but one thing that she wasn't really talking about is this mixing of the Swedish population. We see that we have turmoil, chaos in Sweden, ethnic opposition, and now they come with this brilliant idea of the mixing, and this is social democratic ideas on steroids, and I cannot really keep up with what is being said. You do not change behavior just because you move, and I thought that we had realized that by now. And, Mr. Speaker, I think that this shows us something that is kind of unpleasant, the idea that the Social Democratic Party has about people who come to Sweden who should be regarded as being parcels that can just be sent around here and there and everywhere, depending on where the Social Democratic engineers feel that they should be and do the most good. Well, we have a free education, we have welfare system that is working with high standards, and we have a system that is open for people to fulfill their dreams and to then be forcibly integrated in such a system that is a big failure with multiculturalism. Well, it is a failure, and I will never ever contribute to having coercive measures to try to integrate people that way. We need cohesion and we need a safe country. Thank you. And the following, Magdalena Andersson from the Social Democratic Parties, Nooshi Dadgostar from the left, Rickard Nordin from the Centre Party, and Daniel Hildén from the Green Party have asked for rejoinders.
Mr. Speaker, in Borås, there is a single mother whose name is Alexandra. Since the beginning of the inflation crisis, she's been struggling to make ends meet. Since she is a single mother with children, the extra supplement to the housing subsidy is especially important for her. But with the worsening that will take effect in the 1st of July, she will lose about 1,400 crowns per month. That's the result of the budget that Jimmy Åkesson put forward together with the government parties, the same budget that gave himself over 3,300 crowns more every month. I wonder, Jimmy Åkesson, what do you have to say to Alexandra? Why is it right for you to get over 3,000 crowns in a tax reduction every month, where she is supposed to lose 1,400 crowns in housing supplements? Why does that make Sweden a better country? Thank you, Jimmy Åkesson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, this is not a new discussion. I think that, well, we have talked about this before, and we know that we have different views, different opinions. The Social Democrats on the left-wing side in Swedish politics, well, you think that subsidies, etc., that is what will build our country stronger. But then we have the government parties where we feel that, growth, that is what will make us stronger as a country. And this is where we have a budget that we're proposing, and that this is why it looks the way it does. To be in opposition and promise everything to everyone, well, you can do that, but that will not help us gain competitiveness or growth. The opposite is the case. We need politics that is focused on growth, where people work, contribute to the extent that they can, and that is the politics that we and the government is working to accomplish. Thank you. And thank you, Magdalena Andersson.
Mr. Speaker, it sounds like Jimmy Åkesson means that the people who are getting this housing supplement, most often single mothers, are not contributing to our country. I'll tell you that they are struggling. They're working hard. They're raising their children. They might have a chance to go to a carnival sometimes, but they need to make ends meet. Jimmy Åkesson has been working against them for 3 years. He's stopped this housing benefit. He's even made medicine more expensive by raising the high cost protection for medicine. At the same time, he's giving himself a tax reduction of over 3,000 crowns a month. And he says that the people that are hit hard by this are not contributing. Shame on you, Jimmy Åkesson. Final rejoinder, Jimmy Åkesson.
Sandlåda.
Well, sandbox rhetorics. You have to be prepared to take responsibility. Magdalena Andersson, you had 8 years to do that. But what you left behind was chaos, and now we're 4 political parties are trying to undo that chaos. That is what we're seeing today, that we do not have a budget that we're proposing that you feel is the best. Well, I think that is a good grade that is given to our budget. It wasn't the Social Democrats that won the election. It wasn't the left wing that won the election. It wasn't those who live on subsidies and grants that won the election. But we took a new direction. That was who won the election. And we're working according to what we proposed back then. We are to create new growth, and I'm going to continue on that line. Even if you disagree, I don't think that you will ever like our political proposals. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes that set of rejoinders, and we continue with Nooshi Dadgostar from the left.
Mr. Speaker, the Sweden Democrats, together with the government, raised the fee for medication by almost 1,000 crowns. This is a time when there's record unemployment, record raising of prices, everything because the Swedish Democrats and the government are not doing enough. And if you read about everyone who's going to be hit by the Sweden Democrats' issues. Isabel, 18 years old, is going to have problems getting her medication. Anders is going to having problems getting his heart medication. The Swedish Association of Retired People have said that they're going to have trouble getting their medication. Therefore, or because Jimmy Åkesson and the government thought it was right to raise the fees for medication. Thank you, Jimmy Åkesson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the best of worlds, well, of course, you can give everything to everyone and nothing costs anything, and then everything would be wonderful. But that is not a reality. And when it comes to medication, the reality is that, well, medicines become more advanced and hence more expensive. And then if you're in opposition, particularly if you come from the left-wing party, you can ignore those facts and you can just continue to try to give everything to everyone. You can always borrow money, or what you can do is that you can take your responsibility and take a responsibility so that we can protect a system where we have a lot of subsidies for those who need medication, because that is what it's really about. We have to safeguard that system that we have, and then we cannot just let costs run wild. But that is what the left political parties have done, and then the system will collapse. So it is about protecting the system long term and thereby also protecting those who need that medication. Thank you.
Avgifterna har höjts.
Mr. Speaker, fees have been raised by 1,000 crowns. At the same time, Jimmy Åkesson reduces taxes for the richest by 47,000 crowns. 47,000 crowns. A little part, a very small part of that money would have been enough to keep the fees for medication down. During the previous Partiledardebatt debate, Jimmy Åkesson said that you have to make tough decisions. That was the background to this. And I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, whether his own tax reduction was what he was referring to when he said tough decisions, or whether he believes it's a more reasonable prioritization to say that people with chronic illnesses, the parents of multi-sick children, should pay a higher price instead of decreasing this huge tax reduction. It would have been enough to just reduce it a little bit for fees not to be increased. So I wonder whether Jimmy Åkesson thinks it's correct to reduce taxes by 47,000 crowns for the richest, at the same time as Anders can't afford to get his heart medication. Thank you. Final rejoinder, Jimmy Åkesson.
Mr. Speaker, the Sweden Democrats and our tax policy is clear, I think. And yes, to reduce taxes for ordinary people, well, that is reasonable. But Social Democrats here, well, we are in a coalition with other parties, and then of course we have to compromise. But of course we support the budget that has been presented by the government. And also in difficult economic times with inflation, recessions, turmoil, then you have to be courageous and you have to dare to make decisions that are geared towards growth. And that is what the current government is doing, so that we can long-term build a strong Sweden. And we cannot do that long-term if we have budgets that are totally unrealistic, where everyone is given everything and where no one ever is to be impacted by anything. In our Sweden, we're taking another direction long-term. That is our focus. Thank you. That concludes that set of rejoinders, and we continue with Rickard Nordin from the Centre Party.
Mr. Speaker, for a nationalist, Jimmy Åkesson is fairly uninterested, unengaged in how we can do more in Sweden for Swedish companies. But I wanted to give him a chance because more Swedish food industry means jobs and security in a uncertain time. So what demands can we put on the Swedish government to secure our food supply? We can move. We want to quickly investigate how we can reduce costs in the food industry. We want to reduce the taxes on the farming industry, reducing emissions. We want to rebuild our readiness warehouses for food security. What does Jimmy Åkesson say? Are you prepared to make these demands on the government and conduct them? Thank you, Jimmy Åkesson.
Är det här en förhandling?
Mr. Speaker, are we in a negotiation? My picture is that the Centre Party has refused to talk with the Sweden Democrats, and now you're starting to talk about requirements and the things you want us to do. But if the Centre Party, if you're willing to negotiate with us, we're more than ready to do so. Thank you. And Rickard Nordin, Centre Party.
Thank you very much. What's relevant in Swedish politics is what you want and not how. Apparently, Jimmy Åkesson doesn't give an answer. What of these things does he want to do? To reduce, to cut red tape, improve our food security? For example, in this government, they want to kick out a lot of our agricultural workers. Of course, there's an exception for some people, but tractor drivers animal keepers and so on, they're being kicked out when we need that competency in Sweden. It's a completely crazy proposal, apparently. What do you want to do if you're not behind the Centre Party's proposal? What are you going to do instead? Because obviously we need more Swedish food production, and that's what I'm asking Jimmy Åkesson about. What do you want to do there? What pressure do you want to put on the government to solve these questions for real? The Swedish people deserve an answer. Thank you. Final rejoinders, Jimmy Åkesson.
på det här.
Mr. Speaker, I will answer. Let me just comment and say that the Centre Party now, well, I don't know what to say. You're acting party leader. What you're saying here, that it's relevant what you want, not whom you want to do it with. And everyone should remember that when we have elections a year from now. That is the stance of the Centre Party, obviously. The Sweden Democrats, we have many ideas as to how to increase self-sufficiency, food production in Sweden. We have committees, commissions where we participate with many different proposals. And we've also started to look at a differentiated VAT on food products. And perhaps we could do something there to reduce VAT on goods that can be produced in Sweden. That's one example. But the Centre Party, what you think is that we should use all agricultural land in Sweden to produce biofuels. But I do not think that is a proper way to get self-sufficient. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes that set of rejoinders. And we continue with Daniel Hildén from the Green Party, please.
Tack, herr talman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jimmy Åkesson has been clear about how he wants to slow down and tear up climate policy both in Sweden and the EU. But who actually gains by locking Sweden's into a vulnerable dependence on fossil fuels? I would say it's Vladimir Putin, the despot that finances his regime with oil money, or pumping more money. We're pumping more money into the Putin's war chest than we've given to Ukraine in financial support. Most probably, the origin of this is Russia. And the question, Mr. Speaker, is how long does Jimmy Åkesson think it's okay to finance Putin's war of aggression? Thank you, Jimmy Åkesson.
Mr. Speaker, it's not at all because of our politics that we conduct together with the government. That is not why we have this phenomenon in sort of a Swedish vacuum. This is because of the politics that were conducted by you and the Social Democrats for many years. Politics where there was some sort of bizarre, weird reasoning about climate policy that actually made us more dependent on fossil fuels than what we should have been. Because you decided to close down fully functioning production of electricity. So I think that you now stand here and you say that I finance Putin and the war of aggression on Ukraine. That is kind of horrific. We're totally supporting Ukraine, and we also have sanctions we have decided on. And Daniel Hildén, please.
Jimmy Åkesson fortsätter att upprepa lögner om vad...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Jimmy Åkesson continues to repeat lies about nuclear power as if we shut it down. I would be proud if I had done so, but the lie that you continue to tell, that the Sweden Democrats and all the parties continue with, is not worthy of this riksdag. Additionally, it's been said, as it's been said before, that it is not the case that nuclear power has to do with dependence on oil. That's something else. Rather, what has happened is that there's a war on energy independence. This means that millions of liters of petroleum products are pumped into Swedish vehicles, which we could have done without. Jimmy Åkesson is doing nothing about that because he has no plan whatsoever for how Swedes should transition their energy policy. Does Jimmy Åkesson continue to believe he should finance Russia's war of aggression with the oil being pumped into Swedish cars. Thank you, Jimmy Åkesson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to nuclear power, I don't know how many times I've tried to answer to that question. And if Daniel Heldén, well, what you're claiming that it wasn't you who were responsible for nuclear power being done away with, well, that is a lie. And you're saying that yourself here as well, that even if it wasn't you, you would have if you could have. And here we know that we have actually built prosperity in this country based on what we've done. And Daniel Heldén, I know that you cannot answer, so I'm not going to ask you, but let me just say that if the Green Party would still have a say on fuel politics in Sweden, then diesel wouldn't be 17 krona, but maybe 50 krona. And I don't think that the Swedish citizens would have appreciated that. It would have been a very bad thing for our country. Thank you. That concludes the rejoinders on Jimmy Åkesson's address. And we're going to continue with our speakers list. And Nooshi Dadgostar from the Left Party. Please go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, it's time for the end of school. For some people, it's the first one in their lives. Missing teeth break into broad smiles when bright voices sing Lawless Goliath. But the end of school is happening against a background of great worry because the world is falling apart. In the book Here's Our House, Children's Tales from Gaza, 16-year-old Maram describes how an Israeli bomb strikes her neighborhood. My mother hated my brother, found my brother covered in blood. She tried to pull him away but could not. Someone pulled him out of her hands and put him on a car above both men and children. Gaza's children can't play football, can't buy candies, they can't scrape their knees. They starve to death or they're pinned under collapsed buildings. 16-year-olds should be dreaming about the future, but the majority of children in Gaza wish they were not alive. The world has failed the Palestinians and failed to uphold international law. This is a betrayal of all of humanity, and part of the responsibility rests on this government. Anyone who can stop a genocide has a responsibility to act, so do it now. Pressure Israel to end the war, institute economic sanctions, end all arms trade with Israel, restart support to UNRWA, raise your voices, clearly condemn this abominable murdering, the driving away of people, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide, and it has to end. Thank you. Eva Bush for the Christian Democrats has asked for a rejoinder. Go ahead.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, this year we celebrate 250 years of Jewish life in Sweden, and as we do that, unfortunately, we recurrently seen how anti-Semitism has been given air to breathe in the Left Party. I know that we can't use props in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, so instead I'll try to describe the image disseminated on social media by a Left Party member showing a well-known anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. It's an image of a hand on top of another hand, a Jewish hand governing its puppets, US, Ukraine, and the rest of the Western world. And I know that Nooshi Dadgostar is not an anti-Semite. We are united in this fight against it. But I have to ask, do you think, Nooshi Dadgostar, that this image spread by your party member is anti-Semitic? Thank you, Nooshi Dadgostar, the Left Party.
Mr. Speaker, we can never accept anti-Semitism in our country, not any type of racism, we will act against it. I know there are persons that have spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories in the Christian Democrats, in the moderates. Some of them have apologized. Many still have their jobs, but we will do everything we can to combat anti-Semitism together with our Jewish friends. But criticism of Israel is not a question of anti-Semitism. It's not about identity or faith. It's about actions. One may not murder children. One may not commit war crimes. But be sure of this, we will always combat anti-Semitism, and therefore that person has been excluded for the party. The people that have not been are the persons Ebbe Busch has responsibility for. Throw them out of the Christian Democrats. Ebbe Busch, are you prepared to do that? Thank you, Ebbe Busch, Christian Democrats.
Mr. Speaker, I need an answer to my question. Are you suggesting, Ms. Dadgostar, that the image that was spread is anti-Semitic or not? Other objective people are crystal clear. This is one of the worst and most heinous and oldest anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And I need to know, Ms. Nooshi Dadgostar, do you have the backbone to call it what it is, anti-Semitism? If you're not prepared to do that, then we have a problem. And if yes, why does this member of the riksdag still operate on the left party flag in this chamber? Why is the person not excluded from the group meetings, but excluded from other types of situations as a member? How can you honestly say that you honestly fight anti-Semitism if you don't even condemn the spread of this image from the member of the party and still let this person be part of the party? Get rid of the anti-Semites. Nooshi Dadgostar.
Mr. Speaker, this person has been shut off from political work. They do not represent the left party. We act. There is no acceptance for this type of anti-Semitism and conspiracy theories that you entirely correctly criticize this picture for. It spreads, that account spreads anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. I've pointed that out time and again, and it has had consequences. And I'm quite happy if Ebbe Busch means seriously by this that she will also take up the fight to make sure that people like Oster Schwemstedt, Björn Söder, and more of these Swedish Democrat members of the Riksdag that have kicked animals and called them Jews, that have said that Jews cannot be Swedes, who have said that it's okay to have Jews as long as there's few of them, just as like Richard Jomsson has said. That is completely unacceptable. We cannot accept that kind of anti-Semitism, and I am very happy to hear that Ebbe Busch will take up the fight against them. That exchange of rejoinders was therefore finished. The floor is to Mr. Rickard Nordin from the Centre Party.
Herr talman!
Mr. Speaker, Sweden used to be a country of innovation, a growth country, a country where ideas turned into businesses, businesses turned into jobs, and jobs turned into a future. But in the Tidigare government Sweden, this motivational force has gone away because politics hesitate when we should take the lead. Who has the courage to start a future business here when the signals coming from the government are, hit the brakes, hold off, there's nothing for you here? The Centre Party knows that green growth is the future for Sweden. A reduction of emissions can be combined with a growing economy. We have proved that for decades before this government came into power and turned climate policy and business policy into castles in the air. How much should emissions increase before the government finishes with their own private climate disaster? How far should the rest of the world outrun us before the government realizes what's about to happen? How many bankruptcies and how many unemployed people should Sweden have to have before the government takes this crisis seriously? The disappointment across the world is great to see Sweden going from being a role model to be wearing the dunce's cap when it comes to climate policy. The disappointment in Swedish industry and commerce is extensive to see that Ulf Kristersson's government have lost the center-right power to build new things. And the disappointment in Swedish home is extensive that the government has forgotten about the primacy of work principle and make sure that there aren't jobs for people to go to. The government is managing what's there, but they don't have the courage to look to the future. Ideas die, visions fade. We are ready to get the job done. We are not going to be sidelined when work has to be done. If the government doesn't have the stamina to get the job done, we in the Centre Party do. We have rejoinders to the address from Riksdag Nordin, and the rejoinder comes from Mr. Jimmy Åkesson from the Sweden Democrats.
Mr. Speaker, I listened to Rickard Nordin's first discourse, first of all, when he talked about the countryside and the ability to live ever in the country, and things should be the same regardless of where in the country you live and so on. I have just a question to Rickard Nordin. How does this go together with shutting down Skellefteå Hospital? Thank you, Rickard Nordin, Centre Party.
Thank you very much, Mr. Åkesson. It's a very reasonable question. The problem is that we have parties in this riksdag who want to centralize even more, and that doesn't solve any problems. This is an issue for the region. They're responsible in this type of situation. Of course, you have to make ends meet in the economy. If they got returns from our natural resources, not least in Sollefteå of all places, they would have a completely different economy on their hands. But in this Sweden, in this government Sweden, the government supported by Mr. Åkesson, they do not give returns to Sollefteå. The millions for hydropower, wind power, and so on. Well, those resources come to Sweden. And of course, it becomes difficult to fund welfare systems then. Let the money stay. Let Sollefteå benefit from the resources they have. Thank you. Jimmy Åkesson.
Mr. Speaker, it is fantastic anyway that the Centre Party is blaming the Sweden Democrats and the government for shutting down a hospital that the Centre Party decided to shut down. Any serious observer would say that the Centre Party's policy would be very much more expensive to shut down this hospital and centralize, because you have to invest quite a lot of money to do this. I understand that there could be different regional needs. I understand that it's a regional decision at this point that the Centre Party was behind and pushed through. But for them to stand here at the rostrum and say that the entire country should live and we are prepared to do everything we can for everyone to have things just as well, regardless of where they in the country they are, this is very high-level hypocrisy. I believe that the Centre Party should either stop being hypocrites or stand up for what they actually do. Thank you. Final rejoinder, Rickard Nordin, Centre Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we stand behind our politics and creating possibilities across our country. And yes, there are different regional needs, but you have to make sure that the conditions are right for different places. You have to give back from what the state is collecting. And there is a difference between what you think and who you cooperate with. And the problem here is that the policy from the Centre Party and the Sweden Democrats is completely different. The Centre Party wants to empower regional, local authorities, but the Sweden Democrats want that power to go to Stockholm. Of course, it's difficult to cooperate then, when your politics are completely different, when you can't say what you want to do instead, when you don't grant the resources needed to the countryside so they can keep their schools and clinics, to make sure that police officers show up no matter where in the country you live. Well, when you have different ideas about those things, it's also very difficult to cooperate. Thank you. That concludes this exchange of rejoinders. The next speaker is Ebba Busch from the Christian Democrats. Please take the floor to give your address.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, Sweden is our home. The country we've built with curiosity, hard work, and cooperation, and shared values. There are politicians who believe that a good society is primarily about material things, life's essentials like having food in your belly, money in your wallet, and a roof over your head. All of that is necessary. But without values binding us together, that home we build is hard and cold. And our shared home is under challenge now from gang criminality, honor oppression and parallel societies by forces who believe that if you shout the loudest and act intimidatingly in our streets, they are also in the right, but their division must never be ours. Divisions that sowed chaos, conflict, and war over there must not be imported here. An increase in polarization and a lack of discussion and debate is something Sweden cannot afford. So when there's a war raging in Europe, when the war also poses a threat against our country, something else is expected from us. We need to gather around the values characterizing Sweden that make it ours. The social cohesion that means that conflicts don't go further than a note in the laundry room, neighbors watering each other's plants when they're away on holiday, and coaching kids in football. We need to empower everything that makes us feel and create trust, cohesion, and respect, so that we, when faced with the threat of war, are prepared to stand shoulder to shoulder on the front lines to defend what is ours. Sweden is worth defending. Swedish values are worth defending. Thank you. Thank you very much. And rejoinders have been requested from Nooshi Dadgostar, the Left Party, Rickard Nordin, the Centre Party, and Daniel Heldin, the Green Party. First rejoinder from Nooshi Dadgostar from the Left Party.
Mr. Speaker, initially I want to say that it's very good that Jimmy Åkesson brought up Sollefteå Hospital, because we have made a proposal to save that hospital. So I now encourage Jimmy Åkesson and preferably Ebba Busch to vote for our proposal. Otherwise, it would be strange to have that position. Good healthcare is a foundation for society. A person who is affected by illness should be able to quickly get medical care and get the treatment that needs to be done. But there's a record number of healthcare employees who've been laid off around the country. The queues to healthcare have never been as long as they are now. Waiting times have never been this long as they are under the current government. Does Ebba Busch, who promised to reduce the healthcare queues, assert that she has fulfilled her election promises? Go ahead, Ebba Busch. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, to answer the specific question, well, I'm not Morgan Johansson, so I'm not going to stand here and showboat about everything I've done. We will only be satisfied once the problem has been resolved, and Sweden's healthcare is still in crisis when so many patients have to wait so long to receive the care they need. But just take this the proposal coming from the left party that we here would guarantee, well, it's not reasonable that pregnant women have to travel very far distances on dangerous roads to get a safe delivery. It's not reasonable to close down Sollefteå Hospital. Nooshi Dadgostar wants a possibility to guarantee a sensible distance to the nearest hospital on a national level. Yeah, well, the time is now once they come under criticism when they've closed down local healthcare systems. It is this change to go from 21 different bodies to one body that has responsibility that the left party says no to.
Eftersom hon inte verkar.
I understand how she avoids answering questions since she does not appear to know. It was Magdalena Andersson's. It was not Magdalena. It was Magdalena Andersson's fault that these healthcare queues grew. That's what Ebba Busch said. It was Magdalena Andersson's fault that food prices went up. But now, after the election, Ebba Busch is saying it's everyone else's fault. She's saying she had nothing to do with the matter. There is no government that has pulled the state away from healthcare as much as this government. They have reduced their engagement. You chose to reduce taxes by 70 billion instead of keeping Sollefteå Hospital, instead of making sure you would reduce the waiting times. There were record layoffs in Swedish healthcare. That's assistant nurses and nurses that need salaries every month to do their jobs regardless. Thank you very much. Final rejoinder, LB Busch.
Please, Nooshi Dadgostar, do not besmirch me with that type of political leadership. It is your responsibility within the Left Party and the Social Democrats. It's a misery we have with energy, with inflation, with fuels, with healthcare queues. But I fully take responsibility after cleaning things up after 8 years of red-green rule. But don't come along and say that now it's good to have national responsibility taking to save the care in Sollefteå when you consistently in the commission voted against what is necessary. Don't say that you're on the patient's side when you continue to defend a system that's 160 years old, which is obviously not sufficient for modern healthcare. Now that we've heard the experts, not the politicians, but the experts' opinions on item by item, there are good reasons to increase state control for funding, preparedness, and so on. What else is left to do? Stop talking, start acting. That closes this exchange of rejoinders. Next rejoinder from Rickard Nordin from the Centre Party. Please take the floor.
Herr talman.
Mr. Speaker, it was almost 7 years ago that Ebba Busch got a feeling in a debate and wanted to talk about nuclear power. It didn't work in that debate then, and not a lot of people are clapping their hands today. Millions of Swedish households are starting to understand how expensive this is going to be with increased tax and electricity prices, both now and for the foreseeable future. Why does the government not even examine the alternatives to nuclear power that can do the same thing more quicker and cheaply? We in the Centre Party have showed the alternatives, water power, etc. It'll take half as long time to get it in place and cost a quarter as much. Why are you not even looking at these solutions before you throw out hundreds, perhaps thousands of billions of crowns on the largest planned economic subsidy in Swedish history at the same time as your failing Swedish taxpayers? Thank you, Ebba Busch, Christian Jambakats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rickard Nordin has done a very good job in this debate. I look forward to meeting him in other debates in this chamber, but I don't just get a feeling in a debate when I introduce a big reform. They're based on facts and physics. And the red-green parties wanted to close down Barsebäck nuclear power, where we had lots of fossil-free power that was shut down that would have made Sweden more robust and more price competitive compared to the continent. And then they also pushed very hard to close down further nuclear power plants. Again, large quantities of fossil-free base-load power that was needed for the grid. Everything that Rickard Nordin is proposing is what the government is currently doing, all of it. The only thing we're asking is if we are to achieve a competitive, growth-oriented green transition, then we need more future baseload that is fossil-free. Can we not cooperate on nuclear power as well as we've done with other forms of energy? Rickard Nordin, the Centre Party.
Well, thank you. Ebba Busch is talking about physics, but those physical laws do not seem to apply for the government offices. We have to look at alternatives, and the government isn't doing that. There are no alternatives that have been looked at under this proposal. So you were saying that you know more about physics than the professors that we have at universities. The government, I don't think that you can believe in this yourself. What you're talking about is that, well, if we focus too much on one type of energy, that will lead to more expensive prices. That is what you've said yourself. So why do you not look into that? You say that you have it, but there are no inquiries, no investigations, nothing, no proposals on making things more efficient. You're just doing away with that objective for efficiencies, and this will be terribly expensive. Who is to pay and what will it cost? Thank you. Final rejoinder, Christian Democrat Ebba Busch.
Mr. Speaker, Rickard Nordin is right, but it is not true to read our policies as the devil would read the Bible. You cannot just put all your faith in one single power source. That's why we need everything, a mix of things. That's why we have 70 measures to pave the way for more power production here and now. That's why it was said to me when I came to my post, no, it's not possible to do that. We can't do that. But yes, it is possible to do that. 70 different measures to make sure that we can have more wind power, land-based wind power, what your parties couldn't do, and where can we have offshore wind power, where can we not do that. But no other place would you except that you have 13,000 megawatts more installed power capacity, but you only get 40 more in increased supply. So we need input from all directions, and that is what we're working towards. That closes this round of rejoinders, and the next rejoinder comes from Daniel Hildén from the Green Party.
Tack, herr talman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to a report from the UN body IPC, the entire Gaza population is threatened by starvation. FAO has also found that food available is below that limit where you can survive. 96% of the inhabitants do not have enough food in Gaza, according to the Red Cross. And Save the Children, they're talking about 1.1 million children that are close to starvation. And Magnus Jakobsson from the Christian Democracy obviously thinks differently. It's not at all a fact that people are starving, he said last week. And he also says that this is not correct, that cannot get food and supplies there because of blockades. Do you agree with Magnus Jakobsson? Ebba Busch, please go ahead.
The short answer is no.
Mr. Speaker, the short answer is no. Everyone knows that the Christian Democrats are warm supporters of the idea of a two-state solution. That's the only path to sustainable peace in the Middle East, but also a full recognition from the Palestinian people, who cannot elect a terrorist sect as their leaders and where their explicit goal cannot be to extinguish the state of Israel. Having said that, the criticism from me as a leader of the Christian Democrats and as a representative of the Swedish government, our criticism of the Israeli government is now very tough. The entire spring, the Israeli government has denied acute humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza. In real time, we can now see how children, the same age as my own children, are starving to death, and Israel is denying access to aid. This must stop. Aid must be let through. Thank you very much. Daniel Heldén, the Green Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, do you think about Bush that an appropriate individual for representing Christian Democrats in the parliament is someone who spreads disinformation about this humanitarian starvation disaster? Ebba Busch.
Mr. Speaker, the answer is we've been crystal clear in saying that in a situation where people are being harmed and dying, you have to be very meticulous about the information you spread. I demand that of all our members. What the Swedish government is currently doing is that in all of our international contexts where we have Swedish representation, we now stress the need for access to humanitarian aid. We're one of the countries in the world who donate the most amount to people in need in Gaza, but the aid is not reaching them. The European Commission is now seeking the support of other countries to get sanctions in place against extremist ministers in the Israeli government to put further pressure on the human rights issues and the fact that the aid has to be given access to reach the people in need. We know what we need to do, and we're doing it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This closes this exchange of rejoinders, and the next address will come from Mr. Johan Persson from the Liberal Party.
Herr talman, efter då 6 år med...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 6 years of party leader debates, first as a stand-in, well, Richard Nordin, you have to be careful. Watch out. You never know what will come. And now it's time to end this assignment as the party leader of the Liberal Party, and thereby the party leader debates. And I will also leave the seat here in the Riksdag representing Örebro, which means that now I have to say thank you to the Speaker, to the Presidium, thank you to everyone here in the Riksdag, and thank you to all members of the Swedish Riksdag. Everyone who's been here, some of you who are still here as elected representatives, well, some of you were not even born back when I started. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who's working here in the Swedish Riksdag to make things work smoothly for us elected representatives so that we can do what we're here to do. And thank you to the administration, everyone who makes sure that we have proper IT support, all security guards, all people within administration, within the library, well, those leading the various groups, well, everyone, quite simply. And thank you also to everyone who has listened to the debates. Thank you to the journalists who are scrutinizing us. Without you, we wouldn't have that much of a democracy. Thank you also to everyone in the government offices, in government, to all colleagues to make sure that we have made things better, for example, Swedish schools. And also thank you to all party leaders, all of you who step up and take that responsibility for something that is incredibly difficult, but this is also something very, very important. And I know that you do hard work for Sweden, a country that you love. And sometimes I get sort of dizzy when listening to your arguments, but anyway, I've never doubted. I know that you feel a true commitment to do what you can for Sweden. And someone close in my family, well, this person usually says, think about tone, because that is something that matters. And thank you for letting me work here for our democracy. Thank you.
Tack så mycket, och till att börja med måste jag...
Thank you very much. And first of all, I need to apologize to Mr. Heldén from the Green Party because he was supposed to give the address at this point. That was my mistake and I apologize. But we have rejoinders to Johan Persson, Magdalena Andersson, Social Democrats, Jimmy Åkesson, Sweden Democrats, Nooshi Dadgostar, the Left Party, Rickard Nordin, the Center Party, Ebba Busch, the Christian Democrats, and Daniel Heldén, the Green Party. The first rejoinder comes from Magdalena Andersson, the Social Democrat Party. And now we have disruption here when I'm leaving.
Johan Persson, Socialdemokrat.
Well, Johan Persson, the Social Democrats and the Liberal Party, historically we've been able to collaborate. We have a long history of cooperation, and there are many important things in this country that our parties together fought and won. Right to vote, universal suffrage, democracy, many things. The Social Democrats and the Liberal Party, we worked together to build that democracy for all citizens. And together we have also stood up for equality in Sweden. We agreed on a big tax reform in Sweden. We simplified the taxation system for wage earners. And 2018, that fall, we, together with two other political parties, took responsibility for a very difficult political situation. And your good mood has also contributed a lot amongst us party leaders. But now you will be given an opportunity to do other things, not just participate in political debates, but spend time with your family and do all those things that you might not have time as a party leader to develop, to learn new things, for example. And we, Social Democrats, as the Liberal Party, we feel that lifelong learning and public education is something very, very important. And now you will have more time to learn, to do things. I also know that you like doing things to your house, that you like carpentry, painting your house, etc. And we have ABF in Örebro that provide courses where you can learn about materials and paint. And here is a course provided for you.
Tack snälla.
Thank you very much, Magdalena Andersson. I will put this to very good use. To walk around in circles is to be avoided, but to attend study circles is something you should do. There are also many circles of friends, as they talk about it in this group of people. Maybe it's not always about training or education, but to learn more about DIY and looking after your house. That's part of the Swedish national spirit, so thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we also have a rejoinder from Ulf Kristersson, the Prime Minister, but we next pass the floor to Jimmy Åkesson from the Sweden Democrats. Please come up.
Ja, herr talman.
Well, Mr. Speaker. the euro. Finally. Nah, let's forget about that. We can discuss that another time. But I think this is kind of sad because Johan Persson, you've been here for such a long time in this building and in other places as well. You have a very long career and you've served Sweden for many, many years. And the last few years, not least, we have been able to talk a lot and we've taken a shared responsibility for the country. We haven't always agreed, but we've been able to agree on many things, and I think that's very good. And Johan Persson, well, you've always been this, joyful, knowledgeable person. You have provided positive energy in a way that you perhaps do not always connect with the political leadership. You're definitely not a dull politician. The opposite is the case, and I think that's really good. And I've also cherished our conversations. And I brought along a book. I think that you've already read it. Thinking about this with being in politics for a long time, being surrounded by idiots, it's called. And I guess you can interpret that in different ways. And what I mean, well, I'll let you ponder that question yourself when you find the time. And a big thank you, Johan, and I'm sure that we'll meet again.
Tack så mycket. Då går
Okay, my quick response to Jimmy Åkesson is that we're a great bunch in here. We have every type of opinion represented. We have such diversity of opinion in here, but our job is to safeguard and protect our democracy, to agree, to give and take. It doesn't mean that you all have to think alike. And I also do think that we need to discuss the tone that I mentioned before. It's important that you think about this, that what we do, we're doing it for the sake of Sweden, and you have to differentiate between politics and individuals. And I look forward to other books, not just this one, and discussing the euro more, of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Åkesson. Thank you very much. And the next rejoinder comes from Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, the Moderate Party. Please take the floor.
Jaha, herr talman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I've had the privilege to say thank you to you already, Johan, within the government circle. But I want to do that here in this chamber as well, because we've spent a lot of time here together. You have truly done your duty, and you should feel proud. Your good mood, well, it has helped you to get your party back into politics. You've managed to get over that minimum level, and here you are. And secondly, you're a true liberal with a true conviction, and you understand that you have to be able to talk to others if you wanted to get things done, because most of us, well, we do not have that own majority. So if you want to get things done, you have to be willing to compromise. And if you can't, well, then you will not be successful, but you have been able to do that. And then the biggest, most important thing as a leader is to have skilled people working together with you. And that is also something that I appreciate with you. And I think that I will continue to do that. But now, well, I have a couple of books. I didn't know what you had already read, and I'll give you 3 books. It's not about geopolitics or anything like that, but it's Helena Andersson, and it's her most recent book on Esther Nilsson. It's an amazing book, and you can read it together with your children, together with your family. There are so many things to experience, and just to play it safe, I'll give you 3 books because I'm a bit afraid that you've read 2 of them, but I don't think you've read the 3rd one. Thank you to you, Johan.
Persson, Liberalerna.
Tack.
Johan Persson, Liberals. Yeah, thank you, Ulf, and thank you for these important books, which are extremely interesting. I will send the last one onward. You mentioned skilled colleagues, which I do think we have. One of them is the State Secretary at the Education Department, the latest book by Lynn Anderson, Douglas Felt. A man of character who is not caught up by events. He lets things be, and I hope I won't get criticized for that, but I'm going to read themselves. This is societal literature, and it's about the meaning of life, which we search for in our tasks when we spend our short time here on the earth. Thank you, Ulf. Thank you very much. The next rejoinder is by Nooshi Dadgostar from the Left Party. Thank you. Go ahead.
Ja, Johan.
Well, Johan, I've said this to you before. I don't think you should leave. Okay. I know that your wife disagrees, but I think it's really sad that you leave the riksdag, and as a party leader, you're a fun person, and you are always yourself. I've truly appreciated you as a party leader, and I'm not quite sure what to do. I feel a bit lost when it comes to who to discuss with, talk to. I have to find someone else who's fun. I asked my colleagues what they felt that I should say about you. He's very tall, they said. So obviously I'm not the only one thinking that, and perhaps that is the biggest difference amongst us party leaders. But I was thinking, Johan Persson, you've done so much. You've been a group leader, a member of the Riksdag, and now you're in charge of education as a minister. Well, there were a few swaps that happened. And perhaps you'll reappear in a new role, because it seems like you pop up here and there and everywhere. When you came to the Riksdag, David and Victoria Beckham had just met. And the very, very modern MP3 players were in vogue. And I do understand that you want to do something different now. It's not strange at all. But when looking at the government and read about you as a minister in media, well, I get this feeling that there's another interest there as well, something that you really want to do. And now you'll have more time. And for someone who now wants to move from screens to books, I also want to give you a book, and it's a book about trading stocks. I think that it will be beneficial for you. I think that, well, there are things that I think, well, can be beneficial for you in the future. And thank you, Johan. I know that you have many, many things that you will still do, and have a wonderful life. Best of luck. Johan Persson, please.
Jag ska ringa.
Yes, well, I'll call Nooshi at inappropriate times and read aloud from this about how prosperity is created, how a strong corporate side will make things better. Now, whether we're defending the police or the care of my mother and father who need help from healthcare, this is how we put society together. You take care of the forces that create prosperity. So I do want to encourage Nooshi Dadgostar to buy some stocks, or maybe just accept them if someone gives them to you. So thank you, Nooshi. We'll see each other again, I promise. Thank you very much. The floor is to Rickard Nordin for the Center Party. Go ahead.
Tack så mycket.
Thank you. And Johan, you have been here in the Riksdag for some 20 odd years. I have 15 years here, and still this is the first time we debate each other here in the chamber. So my first intervention will also be a farewell for you. And that is sad. But of course, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all the years where you have served liberalism. And the best of luck with what you're going to do in the future. And you definitely have deserved more freedom. And as a freer man, well, you'll have more time. And I've noticed that you've been given a number of books by the colleagues. And so that you do not have to carry all of these things, even if knowledge is a light burden to carry. Well, I want to give you something else. Because here we have a reading pad with 24,000 books. And, well, that will, I guess, take you a bit of time. And you can use it for many things for many years. And thank you, Johan. Thank you for your liberalism.
Ja, ska man gå...
All right. If we're going from books to screens, there's going to be some back and forth. The Liberals are split. How should we handle digitalization of books? But I promise I'll build a better library in my home and will work on computers. I want this Sweden to have the best systems, the best programmers. We should own AI. And I'll start with that book. You can read some great things. I'm going to read heaps of books and balance this in a wise manner. And I think Richard Nordin can give me tips along the road. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next rejoinder is from Ebba Busch, Christian Democrats. Go ahead.
And if you only knew what's in here, well, I'll tell you soon. Mr. Speaker, 3 years. It's like a lifetime. At least that is the way it feels. And Johan, these 3 years, we have given each other a new start, and we've given Sweden a new start. And together, we also produced the biggest research and innovation bill ever. We have dealt with honor oppression. We're not done, but we've started. We have reduced the taxes so that it pays to work and study. And we have started that transition from a screen to a book, to paper. And we've also shared many unforgettable moments. And I'm not sure that they will ever be mentioned in our biographies if we ever write them. But I'm sure that the two of us, well, together we have helped write political history. And that is something that we should be proud of. And you should be proud over that fact. After having served for so many years, sometimes I talk about wearing different hats, sitting on different chairs, be it as a party leader, feminist. But let's talk about you and your various assignments. You are the Johan from Örebro, and you truly love your city. Everyone else in Örebro, you should only know, even when discussing NATO. And you're a member of parliament, you're a minister, many things. And it's obvious that there are certain assignments that you find more important than others. The friend, Johan, the father, Johan, and the husband, Johan. I remember we took a break at some point. Fancy dinner. I was wearing a gown, a noble dinner. Well, you weren't wearing a gown. But anyway, we had a break and we ate a hot dog together. And I hope that you'll have much more time now for those most important assignments. And I know that you'll do excellently. To conclude, I want to say thank you for all of these things, your friendships, the human-to-human conversations. And this is a difficult work environment, and you have truly been a human friend. And thank you. With a gift from the Christian Democrats, it's from UNICEF, so that more children can go to school. It's for books, schooling, etc. And then a little gift, a personal gift from me as well, to remember you of those unforgettable moments that actually wrote political history.
Johan Persson, Liberalerna, varsågod.
Johan Persson, Liberals, go ahead. Yes. Everyone you've met here in politics, and all of them, one of them sticks out as far as warmth and a glow. That's you, Ebba. We have not always had the same opinions, but I'm very happy to have worked together with you over these years and also before that to guard the important values about how you create prosperity. And this is something that the Liberals have talked about for over 100 years, about the forces that create prosperity. And then thinking about how you create prosperity for the future, we most often have gone hand in hand on those questions. Thank you for many conversations about the great challenges of life that we've had. I appreciate it a lot, and we can continue doing that. It's good that I proposed to Marie first, so thank you. The floor for a final rejoinder is to Daniel Hildén from the Green Party. Go ahead.
Thank you, Johan. Usually we're not allowed to address each other with first names, but it's nice to be allowed to do that for once. And well, I was skipped in the debate, and I think I'll actually skip my addresses so that we'd not have to get back to climate policy and dismantling of energy, etc. But anyway, let me say that I've been thinking about what we have in common, apart from being party leaders. And I've always held the Liberal Party in high regard. We actually, both of us, have a background in the town of Örebro. But what else? Well, beginning of this mandate, we entered into a castle to negotiate, and the conclusion of that was an agreement, not the highlight of your career, but now you have worked with us for 3 years. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you a book from us, from me, and it is something that you might learn more about. It's about how to refurbish houses, and perhaps then you can leave the castle and the coalition agreement behind you. I haven't been a party leader for that long, but I've always enjoyed our debates. And your humor and your way of talking, I've truly appreciated. A big thank you for you, Johan.
Johan Persson, Liberalerna.
Johan Persson, Liberals, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't get in too far about telling you political history, what parties in this chamber emanate from the Liberals and what happened in history. Perhaps if somebody here has to make a train at 6 o'clock or something, but the Green Party, once upon a time, was formed because it was believed that the People's Party and Liberals were going too far ahead. Other parties were formed because people believed there were other problems with the Liberals, but in any case, the Liberals are not always in agreement, unanimous about things all the time. Anyway, thank you for the gift. I'm not actually as obsessed with stocks as Nooshi Dadgostar says, but if I do end up in front of the screen, it does happen. I've had a look at what type of abandoned houses and farms there are that people take on as challenges. So I may use this book if I can get access to such an appropriate property. Thank you for that. And for because reusing things is very good. You go ahead and reuse, and I'd be happy to help you. Yeah, great. You can take the attic wings. Thank you very much. That exchange of rejoinders is finished, and I will ask once again Daniel Henton for the Green Party for his forgiveness for my administrative lapse. He has, as you have heard, declined to give his speech now. With that, the party leader debate is finished. Thank you to all the participants, all the party leaders for their participation. Gavel.
Kammarens sammanträde